You guys aren't just pushing products. Like, you're having quality conversations, you're driving great premium, you're writing good policies, and I think there's something to be said about that. In today's episode, Courtney and I sit down with Zach Johnson. He was one of our 30 Life in 5-Day Challenge winner. He wrote 30 life apps, over $16,000 in premium during the challenge, and in the month of January, his office submitted over 44 life insurance applications. He talks about the difference between a slow start in January of 2022 and 2023, where they absolutely crushed it. And he also gives some non-negotiables that he has learned in the last 6 months that his office now is required to do every single day, every single week, every single month to make sure they are producing consistently. With that being said, let's start the show. Hey, welcome to the Insurance Buzz. We are your host, Michael and Courtney Weaver, and we have a special guest with us today, rockstar agent Zach Johnson. Zach, how are you today, my man?
Doing great, guys. Glad to be here. How are y'all?
We are excited to have you here. Oh, man, before we even got it, I like that you're drinking coffee too, by the way. Or is that something else?
I think we're on our third pot today, so just keep it rolling.
Okay, let's go. And that's pretty...
Adrenals are shot, but no big deal.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a great place to start, like the high energy, because before we hopped on the call, we were talking about your 2023, and I want you to just kind of share with our listeners kind of your experience in 2023 and what it's been like so far, because we're recording this in March. And you've had quite the start to the year.
Yeah. Just knew we had to be really intentional. And that's something that I've learned. The first couple of years of my agency, had some successes that kind of could make you a little bit complacent or just take things for granted a little bit. Hit some goals that, you know, for whatever reason, had a great team, had a great situation, and took hitting some things for granted, I would say. And last year, you know, was a little bit of a more down year, had some different things with team and everything. And, you know, I won't get into all of that, but basically it boils down to my name's on the door. It's my fault, right? So, you know, we still hit baseline goals like travel and things last year, but did not achieve what we did the last couple of years. And so coming into the beginning of this year, well, really Q4 last year, kind of hit a reset button on what our goals are going to be, what we're going to be intentional about, what are the things that are, you know, not up for discussion for us to do. And whatever we achieve based on that, you know, you can live with that, right? So, built a good life premium carryover in Q4 again, which is what we had failed to do the previous year. And then I've got a longtime sales team member here. He's the one that actually signed us up for the challenge with you guys, Tyler. He's been here since day one. He's a big energy guy too. He's followed you guys for a while. He's actually probably put me on y'all. So he wanted to do the 30 and 5 challenge. And so I was like, hey,
yeah. All right.
Go Tyler.
If my top sales guy wants to sign up for something like that, then I know it's going to, for one, I know it's going to work out, right? Like if it's his idea to sign up for something like that, then it's going to work. And so I had a newer sales team member as well, with a previous PNC background, and kind of doing a lot more training around the financial services side of things, really solid on PNC. And it was really cool to see how doing something like that, outside voice, like you guys being on there coaching, and, you know, saying some things that I may say and saying some things that I may not think to say as well, but hearing it from someone else, I think goes a long way too. But seeing the development of a new person and then seeing the, you know, the growth for someone who's been around a while. I think in January we submitted 44 life policies and 30 of them were in that during the challenge. So
No big deal.
no biggie.
No big deal.
Right. And that's a testament. I've got such an awesome team, guys. I just want to throw this part in there too. I didn't write a single one of them. So, awesome team, coachable, good attitude, all that. Go ahead.
Yeah, let's dive into this just real fast. So obviously we want to talk about, so Zach just hinted, he was the January, one of the 30-5 winners. All right. Crushed it in January, crushed the challenge. But
30 life apps.
30 life apps in 5 days.
In the
and
5 days, and
16,000 in premium. No big deal. Now, before we get into all the good stuff going on in January, I want to talk about what you learned last year through your struggles. Okay. So you had some team struggles. Like, let's dive into that.
Well, can I interject before we go there? How long have you been an agent, and how big is your team?
I started in August of 2019. Right now I have a staff of 3.5. I've got 5 full-time and 1 part-time remote. 3 sales, 2 service, 1 part-time service remote. Yeah.
Okay.
So 3 salespeople. Yeah, you crushed it. But before we get into crushing it, before we get into the good stuff, all right. So you said you had 2 really great years. Then last year was kind of and not that not every year has been a learning year, but what was maybe one of the biggest takeaways from last year during the struggle time that you took and you're like, man, this just can't happen again. I have to change something.
Yeah, I think what happened was I just thought we'd be able to flip the lights on in January and crush Fast Start in 2022. We didn't have a horrible carryover coming in. It just wasn't what it was prior. And it was really, I think it was, I'm going to blame myself on this. My mindset was, we had a really good 2 years. We've had some turnover. My team is a little bit thin. I had some hiring problems. And I really wanted to take the pressure off my team. Like that's the ultimate thing to me is my team's buy-in, morale, attitude. And I thought I was doing the right thing. But I think, there were some positives from that, but the negative was we took our foot off the gas, too far. And in Q4 of 2021, it wasn't just that we weren't writing, it's that we weren't having the right conversations anymore. And so the carryover kind of slowed down. We came into 2022 with a low carryover. And then January and February happened, which was everyone in my office getting COVID and snowstorms. And, that's all BS excuses, right? The real problem was what we did before, not what actually happened during January and February, right? And so what I learned was, we just have to, there are some things that are non-negotiables that we have to be good at all the time. It doesn't matter what's going on. And we'll take care of, our attitudes and, I'm always conscious of that and, make sure that our team is mentally in a good place. And that's very important. But there are some baseline obligations we have to be good at all the time, or we're just not going to do what we need to do.
Yeah. So you brought up we weren't having the right conversations in Q4 of 2021. I'm curious, when you say right conversations, what do you mean when you say that?
I think it was just the intentionality was gone. It was like, we can kind of coast. So it may not be that we weren't having the right conversation. It may just be that we weren't having enough conversations. That's probably, what it was. Cause everyone that I had on staff was still the same competent team that hit all those goals. I lost a couple team members, but the team members that I had left were the same competent team members. They know how to do it. And I think it was just a mindset thing stemming from me that, we're okay. We hit our goals for this year. Let's hit a reset button. Let's, chill. And next year we'll turn the lights back on and everything, because it's always been easy, right? Like we can do whatever, like when we decide to do it, it's just going to happen. Well, it's not that simple, I think having good habit, I think it's, it comes down to a habits thing.
Yeah. So I would like to touch, because we actually used to do the same thing. Like we would almost give our team off almost the entire month of December because we ran off of a 10-month year. Everything would be wrapped up in October, so November and December. The problem with that is you're right. Like it's a delayed effect. So we may not have the best January. It usually kick in about mid-February, and then we would rock and roll. So I can't agree more with you, but you said something earlier about that you have non-negotiables. So what are your non-negotiables now that you've implemented, learned from, and that you're running with? That it's just like, this is what we have to do no matter what time of the year we're in?
It's really about making sure the non-negotiables stay that way, because it's the same ones that I started with as an agent. And that's, how many quotes are we doing per day? And I'm talking about like household PNC quotes, right? How many conversations are we having per day as far as life? So everyone that we talk to is getting asked, where do you have your life insurance? That's always been a thing in my office. So, it would be, and it was like a minuscule number of calls. Whenever I first started, I was in Ashburn for non-State Farm people. I worked for a State Farm agent prior to having my office. And when I came in to agency, I was putting my team together and everything. And I'm not a big book reader. I know that probably every guest you have on the show probably recommends a bunch of books or reads a bunch of books. I'll just come out and admit it. I don't read a ton of books. But one book that I did read and that I wanted my team to study together was The Compound Effect. Y'all probably have heard of it. It's a small book. It's a short read, but it's, the main thing about it is like, how small of a piece can you break, the success that you want to have, how small can you break that down into something very simple that you can do every single day. And so we read that together, and it boiled down to, like, this was a team thing that we came up with. And I've talked to other people about it, and they're like, man, only 30 calls? Like, that's not very many calls. Or, only 5 household quotes per person. Like, that's not very many. No, it's not. But if every salesperson does that every single day, then the goals just take care of themselves. And that's what happened when we were doing it. Right. Well, we started not doing that. And that's where that led to, not hitting chairman's circle, not hitting level 3. And so that's what we're trying to get back to this year.
I love that you bring that up, because we actually, the foundation of what we coach on is the quote 3 method. And we talk about like 3 quotes out a day. And a lot of times people will like balk at us and be like, that's it, 3 quotes, 3 quotes. And I'm like, okay, can you tell me every single day without fail that every single salesperson is having 3 quality conversations? And quality conversations are just what you're talking about, the 3 Kingsmen, which is property, casualty, and life. If they are having that conversation 3 times a day, if they're already doing that, then great. If not, that's where you have to start. And I think what you're hitting on is a problem that all of us as leaders face.
Well, you're hitting on the most important piece. You want them having, you said 5 quotes. So we always tell people 3 quotes. So quality conversations, though, like emailing out 10 quotes a day is not an actual quote, in my opinion. Like, you're not actually quoting anyone unless you're talking to them and asking for the sell.
Right.
And having a quality conversation, educational base. And so that's why if you can do that, your team's going to have a higher closing ratio. So that's why we preach the 3.
Yeah, start at 3 and get really good at that.
And what you're saying is 100% right. It's like compounding interest. If you can stack the W's every day, get your team winning, that builds confidence. Confidence is a magical thing in a business and sales. And so, man, you're spot on.
Well, and Zach, I love that you have taken like massive ownership in your agency and your team and being the leader, because in the insurance profession, there are so many products, there's different promotions, there's different things to focus on. And that is really where we all kind of can start to spiral, because it's just the scattered energy of like, what do I focus on? When do I focus? And then that trickles down into our teams, because then they're going, well, how do I even win? So I love that your non-negotiables are your quotes and your your life conversations, your pivots into
It's
financial
simple.
services.
It's Three Kingsmen, Auto Fire Life. You do that as an insurance professional, you crush it. So you're knocking it out of the park. So let's get into January.
Let's get into January, where everything changes always. Everyone gets to flip the switch in January.
So you crushed it. Like you all wrote 30 life, 16,000 in premium. We do the 30 life in 5 days challenge every year, multiple times a year for territories. And statistically, around 84% of participants will write 20 or more, but very small percentage, okay, will do 30 plus. So they get close, but 30 plus, and you did it. You crushed it. You continued to crush it. So what did you learn during the 5 days is where I'd like to start. Like, what did you learn during that challenge, or your team even?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I learned that, having a laser focus and high energy and positive attitude, like there's nothing that you can't do if you've got that. If you got a team with that kind of mindset, then there's nothing you can't do. We've never had a run like that before. We've had some really good months, but that's a run like we haven't been on. And part of that too is, we've ran lists before and contacted our current customers, but, I try to be a little bit careful about how much we do that for sure. But that was a big key too, because, there have been a lot of, well, I started with an assignment, right? And yes, we've reached out to all of them at some point. But that was quite a few of our customers that we actually made contact with during that. And so that was a big deal to be able to do that. And then, having like a set out plan of like how to actually attack it. Anytime I've ever ran a list for my team before, it's been, hey, we're going to do this one, and then, but having the 4 lined out, how to attack it, the word tracks, everything like that, that was super beneficial. When you're bringing someone new in to your agency, like what kind of environment are you bringing them into? Like what's the standard? What's the norm for whenever they're starting new? Because I did have someone who was relatively new during this, for them to come in and see that, like that's normal. What we did in January is obviously we celebrate it and it's a huge deal, but like that's a normal thing. Like that type of production is just what we do. And so that's something that I learned too. Always to be thinking about like what, if you're bringing somebody new in, what environment are you bringing them into?
Yeah, what's the expectation? Because they don't know any different. So if you come in and you say, "Hey, we're an office that does 30 life policies a month," and they have no idea, they're like, "Yeah, cool, okay, that's just the standard." Mm-hmm. So you came in hot. You had the 30 in the 5 days, and then you went on to say that you had 44 in the month of January. Mm-hmm. I'm curious as to what you implemented after the challenge to continue on.
Call blocks set in the calendar. So everyone has their own hour for the day now. We're not everybody's still knocking out 3 hours every day, but, everybody's got their 1 hour for the day. So, and that's something that I had whenever, I was a team member, and, I've always like suggested it or, said, hey, we're going to start doing this. And then I just never really put it in play. But that's something that we've started since then.
So I was going to ask, okay, so we talked about January. How has that carried over? Because we're now in mid-March. Yep. All right. So how has this momentum, how have these practices now carried over in your agency for 2023? Like, where are you at right now? So you wrote 44 in January. Where are you at now?
We've submitted somewhere around 60. I have to get the number. I think we submitted 14 in February.
Wow.
I think 12 of those have issued already. And then this month we're still getting started. I've had a little bit of, I've got some good news. I've got a team member who is having a baby. The due date was 2 days ago, and, or his wife is. And so, and then,
yay!
Yeah. And then, I've had another that's been out for a little bit. So I'm about to be with about one salesperson this month. So we're trying to get out ahead of it right now, but it's a fun time.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. How does this January feel in comparison to last January?
Oh, yeah. I mean, last year, I know there's some non-State Farm people listening here, but the big promotion at the beginning of the year is based around life insurance, and it's not just a walk in the park to max it out, right? And I think you need like 35 issued in the promotion, and we rolled out like coming into March, we had 7 issued last year, and so we had a huge March last year, but with underwriting and everything, it was too little, too late. We hit a level of it, but we didn't hit the goal that we wanted to hit with it. And last March was one of our biggest months, but I'd much rather have your big month in January than try to play catch up. So, yeah, totally different feeling, totally different, outlook on the year,
Well, and it sounds like you're also, look, 44 in a month is amazing. A team of 3 salespeople, I don't want to say that would be a stretch every month, but 44 a month would be that's strong for a team of 3. But it sounds like you're implementing consistent practices and making it intentional to where every single day for an hour they're prospecting for life insurance. You've got your conversations with the PNC. So, and you're at 14 in February. I mean, I would assume that's what's your goal every single month?
Yeah, the goal every single month with 3 salespeople would be 15. And typically, like since I've been an agent, our actual average on submitted life, I could run the numbers. It's going to come out to about 12. And then as far as issued, we typically if you just average every single month since I've been an agent, we probably issue around 8 or 9 per month. So that's kind of the percentages there. Sometimes people don't complete underwriting or we have a few declines. But typically 8 to 9 per month is how many we normally issue, normally submitting an average of 12. And of course you have some months where you have 20 to 30, and then you have some months that are not so great, but that's where it normally shakes out. 15 though is right at where my goal would be, if I've got 3 sales team members, 5 each is the goal.
So I'm curious always, because I'm a habit freak, and I always like seeing, like, if I move one category of my life, how does it affect other categories of my life? So in this instance, with your surge in life insurance production, did you see other areas, like did PNC go up as well? Did you see like your culture shift? Like what was the overall like massive change in other areas that came from like success in one area?
Oh yeah. I mean, as far as like culture, I think it's just like it bleeds over into like how you carry yourself. And I'm speaking of my team, how the team carries themselves and their other conversations. It's like a confidence that comes with it. There's a difference in how you're talking to a customer or a prospect whenever it seems like you like need it, as opposed to like where you're coming across as confident and comfortable. And it's like the more success you have with it, the better you get at it. It's like, it's cyclical. So
nobody likes desperation from a salesperson is what you're saying. Nobody wants desperate.
No. And, I should say with that, like my team is very comfortable in how they talk. And so, that's never necessarily been a problem before, but there are different times, everybody has their days, everybody has their months or whatever. And so, but I will say like having that success, like achieving something like that confidence carries over into the future for sure.
No. Well, y'all absolutely crushed it. And obviously, with you being one of the winners, that's why we wanted you on the bus, man. We wanted to hear all about it. We wanted to hear about your success, what you learned.
I always love the behind the scenes
Yeah.
because the reason that the challenge is successful is because of the people that are a part of it.
Yeah.
Like it's like you can actually feel it. Like people get so excited and you can feel like their confidence and their energy. And so this always, like, you've hyped me up. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna make some sales calls. Let's get it. Let's get it.
Yeah, for sure. My team's really good about asking questions. That's one of the big things is, like, I'll ask someone in an interview. Part of this job is asking questions that make people uncomfortable, which in turn can make you uncomfortable. How comfortable are you asking someone a question that is uncomfortable? Because that's where it all comes from. And that's how you avoid that needy selling. If you're just asking questions to people and they're giving you their answers, then, they're doing all the work. You're not really having to do anything. It's very needs based.
Ooh, I love that you just hit on that, because I could tell by the way you were talking, like, you guys aren't just pushing products. Like, you're having quality conversations, you're driving great premium, you're writing good policies. And I think there's something to be said about that. So, Zach, if somebody wanted to follow you, reach out to you, ask you questions, what's the best way for them to do that?
Facebook, I guess. Are you talking about from the podcast here or from? Yeah. Zach Johnson, State Farm. Zach Johnson, State Farm agent. I get the messages that come into there. And then the website, ZachJohnsonInsurance.com.
Perfect. All right, my man. Well, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I enjoyed being here. Good to see y'all.
Absolutely. So for all of those that are listening, thank you so much. We appreciate you. We appreciate your time. As always, time is the most valuable and important asset that we all have. We appreciate you spending time with us today. Go out and make it great.